Welcome to part 2 of 2 on adrenal fatigue. This will take approximately 20 minutes. In part 1, we reviewed how to identify adrenal fatigue. On part 2, we'll discuss how to support your body. I am Nancy Lamb, pharmacist with Good Day Pharmacy. I'm a clinical consultant. Cortisol is frequently referred to as the stress hormone. It's released in response to physical or psychological stress. Some of the different stressors that cause cortisol to be released are physical stress, emotional stress, chronic illness, high sugar in your diet, chronic infection, chronic pain, surgery, and excessive exercise. Keep in mind, sometimes it's perceived stress. It's what makes us feel stressed. The origin can be physical, metabolic, psychological, and emotional. The timing's also important. Acute stress, like going in for a job interview, studying for an exam, meeting someone you're nervous to meet, maybe taking a trip and you're not comfortable traveling, can all cause acute stress. It's short-lived. Your cortisol will go up in response to that stress, and then it will go back to normal. The problem is chronic, persisting, unrelenting stress. Again, sometimes stress is your perception of the situation. If you love public speaking, then that won't be a stressor for you. But for most, public speaking would be a stress. The most common clinical symptoms of cortisol imbalance are fatigue, nervousness and irritability, depression, apprehension, excessive weakness, lightheadedness, and insomnia. Again, there's many kinds of stress, and they all affect your cortisol. Emotional stress is like a saber-toothed tiger chasing you. Piles of paper on your desk. It could be due to family situations. Nutritional stress, famine, skipping meals, high sugar foods. Chemical stress, like a poison, too much alcohol. Physiological stress, cold exposure or over-exercising. And hormonal stress, loss of hormone and not correcting it, which happens as we age. These are some conditions that are associated with cortisol imbalance. Read through them. See if any might be something you are addressing. Sometimes you hear the word pregnenolone steal. When cortisol is being manufactured and we are under chronic stress, it unbalances all of our hormones. This orange arrow indicates the pathway when we're making a lot of cortisol. It will deplete progesterone, which is your own anti-anxiety hormone, and also it unbalances your estrogens, which are here. So when you're under stress, it's very hard to have a good balance between your progesterone and your estrogen. There's a daily rhythm to cortisol. Cortisol goes down in the evening and then rises. It goes down in the evening and then starts to rise in the middle of the night, peaks when you wake up in the morning, and then declines steadily throughout the day. Keep in mind, you need more than cortisol. You need supplements to support your cortisol. So when you're looking for cortisol supplements, it will be helpful if they contain some of these major supplement supports. You need vitamin B5, some vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin B6, and vitamin C. Some general adaptogens, and those are supplements that help to support your cortisol, are these. All of these four are good for all imbalances. Ashwagandha, rhodiola, Siberian ginseng. There's two different kinds, so you're looking for Siberian ginseng, and holy basil. You can take these whether your cortisol is high or low. These are supportive. An example of a general adaptogen that we carry at Good Day Pharmacy is Adapt. And you can see it has many of the other supplements needed to support your cortisol. It's often a good idea to take a general adaptogen when you're starting on hormones to improve hormone imbalance. And that's because if cortisol pathway is stimulated, it's going to be hard to get a good balance of your hormones. So often a general adaptogen used for 3 months is helpful. Another time to use this is for recovery phase. If you've had low or high cortisol and it's corrected, then starting on just a general adaptogen to support your cortisol is a good idea. If you don't know if your cortisol is high or low, again, just a general adaptogen. These next adaptogens should only be used if you know if your cortisol is high or low. So if you've tested your cortisol with a 4-point test, not just morning cortisol, but morning, noon, evening, and bedtime, and you know if your cortisol is high or low, then you will use one of these. But I put these in a list so that if you don't know if you're high or low, you make sure that your supplement does not contain these, because these will either specifically raise or lower your cortisol. So licorice, Panax ginseng, hydrocortisone itself or Cortef, adrenal extracts, so that's part of the adrenal organ usually from bovine, and phosphatidylserine. You can test your cortisol by getting a saliva test, and ZRT is one of the oldest manufacturers of saliva tests. You can find one at Good Day Pharmacy or any pharmacy that carries these and pick them up for free. So there's no obligation to use it. When you do use it, you mail it back to the company with usually a credit card number or something, or a check to pay for it. But you can pick them up for free. This happens to be a saliva and blood test, but you're just going to use the saliva for cortisol, and you're going to want to use all 4 vials. So it comes with 4 vials. You want to be sure and follow the collection directions that are included in the package. The tall one's for the first thing in the morning, and the next 3 are for noon, evening, and bedtime. If you have any questions, you can call ZRT Labs or Good Day Pharmacy. Symptoms of high cortisol, though there can be a lot of overlap, are foggy thinking, memory lapses, depressed mood, bone loss, sleep disturbed, stress, weight gain, rapid aging, nervousness, irritability, anxiousness, uterine fibroids, increased heartbeat and blood pressure, hot flashes, night sweats, and waking up feeling exhausted. High cortisol with no low points on the testing, and you can check with the pharmacy. We can help you with that. For high cortisol, again, you can use the general adaptogens, but you also might want to include phosphatidylserine. This helps to blunt the production of cortisol. Usually, you want to use it in the morning to keep your cortisol from going up throughout the day. You can also use phosphatidylserine at bedtime if you have high night cortisol. Lots of supplements will also contain L-theanine, which is calming. Contraindicated with high cortisol, which means you do not want to take these if you have high cortisol, is licorice, Panax ginseng, any hydrocortisone or Cortef, and adrenal extracts. Those are contraindicated with high cortisol because they'll make your cortisol higher. What we carry at the pharmacy for high cortisol is Adrenal. Though the name sounds like it stimulates your cortisol, it actually lowers your cortisol and helps to support your adrenals. You can see in the green box is L-theanine and phosphatidylserine. Those are specifically used to lower cortisol. You usually start with 1 or 2 capsules in the morning, and it can be increased if needed. Sometimes, if you're high later in the day as well, you can take 2 capsules in the afternoon. If you have a stressful event coming up or an anxiety attacks, take 2 capsules right before that event. So if you're going to give a talk, if you're going in to take a test and you get so stressed over that event, taking this beforehand would be very helpful. Symptoms of low cortisol. So what happens is your cortisol goes high if you never relieve the high stress situations. Eventually, you get what we call burned out, and your cortisol begins to fall, and you end up with low cortisol, which means instead of that high energy fight or flight, you now feel completely burned out. It's excessive fatigue, salt and sweet craving, depression. Lots of times you have allergies, weakness, insomnia. You wake up feeling exhausted, lightheadedness. You can't do just simple exercise. The exercise you used to do is too much. You have no energy. You might not have all of these symptoms, but see if you see yourself in these symptoms. Again, it's always best to test. For low cortisol, even if you're high in the morning, if you go at low any time in the day, you want to treat it as low cortisol. Again, it's the general supplements for adrenal support, but this time you can include Panax ginseng and licorice or adrenal extract. You only see a provider for hydrocortisone if you're extremely low and don't recover with the supplements. But most people will recover with the supplements and feel, once they begin taking these supplements, that they have energy again. The supplements we carry at Good Day Pharmacy are Adrenal and Adaptanol. The difference is, and you can see it in the blue box, is Adrenal contains adrenal concentrate from bovine, and also licorice root. Those are two things that specifically help to keep the cortisol you make active and raise your cortisol. Again, if you look at the supplements included, it is all the supplements you need to support your adrenals along with the adaptogens. You never want to take adrenal concentrate or the licorice root unless you know you have low cortisol, because it will raise your cortisol. Adaptanol is different because it has ashwagandha and licorice root, but no adrenal concentrate. So people who don't want animal products should use Adaptanol. You will use these usually 2 capsules in the morning and 2 capsules at lunch. I always recommend starting with 1 capsule and then increasing. You should notice very shortly after starting these supplements that you have more energy. Again, here's a list of symptoms of low cortisol, though they can overlap. High rising cortisol at night. That is a problem. You want your cortisol to continually go down. So even if all of your levels are low, your bedtime level should be lower than your evening level. If it's not, and you're already starting to go up, it might be the same as your evening level or higher, you need to address high night cortisol. Often people with high night cortisol are what we consider night owls. As the evening goes on, they become more alert and get more energy. So you want to blunt this. And again, what you use is phosphatidylserine. Serifos is phosphorylated serine, and it's sustained release. It is what we carry at the pharmacies, and it doesn't support your adrenals. It just lowers your cortisol, and it is best used at night. Rising cortisol at night decreases your immune system function, so it increases your cancer risk. Some studies say by 4-fold. Can also disrupt your sleep, because as your cortisol is going up at night, your melatonin is coming down, so you have less melatonin. If you have rising cortisol at night, it is very important to treat this. On some of the labs, this is what it'll look like. Now, this first person has a high cortisol. There's an example of a high cortisol because this is the normal range. But you can see at night, their cortisol is going up when it should still be going down. This person has low cortisol, but still their night cortisol is going up. So both people would take something to blunt that rise of cortisol at night. There's some ways that you can make life changes to help restore your adrenals. With exercise, you want to be sure it's mild and restorative, because pushing yourself hard at exercise can only make it worse. It is a stressor, so it can increase your cortisol if you're high already. And if you're low on cortisol, you have no reserve. You have no cortisol to call on to help you with that exercise. So make it relaxing, meditative. If walking around the block at night is restorative, then do it. If it's exhausting, don't do it. Gentle yoga, gentle stretching, but nothing that is demanding on your body. Diet. You want to maintain a balanced blood sugar, so breakfast is important. At least 3 meals a day. You want to include protein, vegetables, and fewer simple carbs because they're like sugar. You want to drink no caffeine or less caffeine, no alcohol or less alcohol, and increase your water intake. To rebuild your adrenals, it takes lifestyle changes, which sometimes is not possible. If you have children at home, if you're caring for elderly adults, if you have a stressful job, if you're building a home, sometimes you're in the middle of things that you can't change. So you need to support yourself. So diet, supplements, herbs, cortisone or Cortef only if you're not recoverable, which is extremely rare. And it takes time. Taking your adrenal supplements will take 6 months to a year with lifestyle changes. If you can't make lifestyle changes at this point in your life, plan on supporting your adrenals long term. If you would like an individual consultation, which includes initial appointment, a review of your health history and medical history, symptoms, hormone testing if recommended, and it will let you know if you need hormones and why. We'll also help you with your adrenal supplements, what you need to support your cortisol. It also includes a follow-up appointment. Hormone tests, including cortisol, will be interpreted for you and will also provide written recommendations to your practitioner. To schedule your consultation, call the pharmacy at 970-224-1212. They will connect you with Anne or another hormone consultant, and they will reach out and help you schedule an appointment. The cost of an extensive review is $150. I want to thank you for joining me and learning about adrenal fatigue. The more you know, the more you can be a participant in the long-term health of your body. Thank you.